No one who truly loves and respects you should ever force you to chase the truth. The moment someone makes you dig for answers, dodge questions, and piece together their lies, they've already betrayed you. There's a unique kind of heartbreak that comes from realizing the person you thought you knew best has been living a double life. It's a betrayal so deep that it shakes the foundation of everything you believed in. I never imagined I would be in this position, questioning everything I thought I understood about love, trust, and commitment. Right now, it feels impossible to believe that I'll ever trust a partner again. I know, logically, that time will heal this wound, but at this moment, the pain is overwhelming. I have known my wife since childhood. Our bond started as an innocent friendship, filled with shared laughter, childhood adventures, and a sense of familiarity that made it feel like we were always meant to be in each other's lives. It wasn't until after college that our relationship evolved into something deeper. We've been together for 13 years and married for 8. Until recently, I would have confidently said that no one in the world knew me, or that I knew better than her. But now, I realize that was just an illusion. Numbers have always been my strength. Even as kids, I used to help her with her math homework, patiently explaining calculations until she understood. When I reached the end of high school, I knew I wanted to pursue a career in finance, and she was nothing but supportive. Throughout our years of dating and marriage, she was my biggest cheerleader, encouraging me to push harder, climb higher, and secure a future that would provide us both with comfort and stability. I thought she did this out of love, but now I can't help but wonder if her motivations were entirely selfless. When you dedicate yourself to building a career, you hope that your partner is patient and understanding. Success requires sacrifices, late nights at the office, missed anniversaries, and weekends spent buried in work. She always reassured me that she understood, urging me to chase my ambitions without guilt. Thanks to that drive, I eventually reached a place where I could slow down a little, take a breath, and enjoy the fruits of my labor. We were comfortable. Money was no longer a pressing concern. But even with financial security, I held on to a childhood dream, one that had nothing to do with stocks or investments. I wanted to own a pizzeria. It was an odd dream, I'll admit, but making pizza was my passion. It was the one dish I could cook better than anyone I knew, and in my mind, it was the perfect retirement plan. For years, I quietly built a savings fund, ensuring that one day, when I was ready, I could open the doors to my very own restaurant without financial worry. That money was untouchable. It was my safety net, my dream, my reward for years of hard work. And then, one day, I had to touch it, for her. She came to me, distressed, speaking in hushed, worried tones about her older brother. He had fallen into significant debt, and his situation was dire. He refused to file for bankruptcy, but he also lacked the means to pay off what he owed. She hinted that his creditors weren't exactly the kind of people you could afford to owe money to, and the concern in her voice made me uneasy. I suggested possible solutions, offered financial advice, but none of it seemed to be enough. Eventually, she revealed the number that sent a chill down my spine, $35,000. That was a quarter of my savings. A devastating blow. I hesitated, not because I didn't care, but because I knew how much that money meant to me. Still, my wife insisted. She assured me he would pay it back and that I wouldn't have to worry. When I asked if he would know the money came from me, she quickly shut down the idea. She claimed he was too prideful to accept my help, that he would be more likely to repay it if he believed it came from her. That didn't sit right with me, but she was adamant. I was torn. My upbringing placed immense value on family, and the idea of someone I cared about potentially suffering because I refused to help was unbearable. If I said no and something happened to him, would I ever forgive myself? Would she? In the end, I relented. I transferred the money to her account, watching as she lit up with joy, more excited than I had ever seen her before. That moment of happiness softened my resentment, made me feel like maybe, just maybe, I had done the right thing. The next day, she told me she had given him the money. I forced myself to move on, throwing myself into work, telling myself I'd give it a few months before I brought up repayment. But 2 months passed, and she never mentioned it. When I asked, she seemed confused at first, as if she had forgotten, before quickly apologizing and promising she'd talk to him. A week later, I asked again. She claimed he needed more time. Another 2 weeks. Another excuse. Then, another month. And another. Each time I asked, there was a new delay, a fresh reason why she hadn't spoken to him or why he wasn't able to pay. I started growing suspicious, but it wasn't until nearly 6 months had passed that I decided I was done waiting. I told her I would talk to him myself. Her reaction was instant. Panic. She begged me not to, claiming that if he knew she hadn't actually used her own savings, it would ruin their relationship, embarrass him, make him feel betrayed. I let it go, but unease settled deep in my gut. Something didn't feel right. 3 more months passed. 9 months since I had given her the money. At this point, I knew. There was no reason, no excuse, no justifiable explanation for why a payment plan hadn't been established. My patience had run out, and I demanded answers. And that was when my world began to unravel. There are few things more devastating than realizing the person you trusted most in the world has been living a double life, hiding secrets behind a carefully crafted mask. It's the kind of betrayal that shakes you to your core, making you question not only the person you thought you knew but also your own ability to trust again. I never imagined that my wife, the woman I had loved since childhood, would be capable of such deception. But life has a cruel way of pulling back the curtain when you least expect it. We had been married for 8 years, together for 13. I thought we were a solid team. She had always been my biggest supporter, encouraging me to chase my ambitions in finance. I had worked tirelessly to build a stable future for us, sacrificing time and energy, but I always believed it was for something greater, a life we could both enjoy. And yet, beneath the surface of our seemingly perfect life, she had been leading me down a path of lies. One of my greatest dreams had always been to own a pizzeria. It was an odd passion, perhaps, given my background in finance, but making the perfect pizza was something I loved. I had spent years carefully saving money, ensuring that when the time was right, I could invest in my dream without hesitation. That money was sacred to me, untouchable. Even during difficult times, I refused to dip into it. But all that changed the day my wife came to me with an urgent plea. She told me that her brother was in trouble. Deep in debt, unable to see a way out, and growing desperate. She hinted that he owed money to dangerous people and was at risk of doing something drastic. It was a story designed to tug at my heartstrings, and it worked. I couldn't stand by and do nothing if there was a chance he might harm himself. So, against my better judgment, I agreed to lend the money, $35,000, transferring it directly to my wife, who promised she would get it to him. At first, I tried to put it out of my mind, reassuring myself that family comes first. But as months passed and no repayment plan was mentioned, my concern grew. Each time I asked her about it, she had a new excuse. He needed more time, he was struggling, she didn't want to pressure him. Something wasn't sitting right, but I wanted to trust her. Finally, after nearly a year of dodged questions, I decided to confront her brother myself. The moment I saw his face, I knew something was wrong. He was genuinely happy to see me, and there was no sign of the desperation she had described. When I brought up the loan, his confusion was undeniable. He had never received a cent. His business wasn't in trouble. He had never asked her for money. I felt my stomach drop. There was no misunderstanding, no missing piece of information that would make this all make sense. My wife had lied to me. I didn't say anything to her that night. Instead, I hired a private investigator. If she had fabricated such an elaborate lie to get her hands on my savings, I needed to know why. And within a month, the truth was laid bare in front of me. She had withdrawn the money in cash, breaking it up into smaller transactions to avoid suspicion. From there, the trail led to a house that belonged to a man named Kyle. The PI followed her there on multiple occasions. Then he traced a major purchase tied to Kyle, a brand new car, registered just days after she withdrew the money. MSRP: $33,000. It didn't take a genius to put the pieces together. She had stolen from me to buy her affair partner a car. The woman who had stood by my side, encouraged my success, shared my dreams, she had been betraying me, both financially and emotionally, for God knows how long. I didn't need to see them together to know what was happening. The money, the lies, the secret visits to his house, it all painted a clear enough picture. I had given her countless opportunities to tell me the truth, and she had chosen deception every single time. That night, I went home and confronted her. I asked about the money again, waiting to see if she would finally come clean. But instead, she gave me yet another lie, something about a friend who had needed it. When I pointed out that she had withdrawn the money in cash, she froze. The moment I mentioned Kyle's name, her face drained of color. She didn't deny it. She didn't even try to explain. She just stood there, tears silently falling down her cheeks, knowing that the game was up. I told her she had 30 minutes to pack whatever essentials she needed and leave. Then I walked out. When I returned, she was gone. That was 2 days ago. I didn't need advice. I knew exactly what I had to do. I filed for divorce immediately, determined to make sure she paid for what she had done, both in court and financially. I wasn't about to let her walk away unscathed after what she had put me through. The legal battle wasn't long, but it was satisfying. During the proceedings, she tried to spin a story about how the money was a loan to Kyle. But she had no proof. No documentation, no messages, no paper trail, nothing but the car itself. Meanwhile, I had a clear transaction history that showed I had transferred the money to her, and that she had withdrawn it immediately afterward. Her lies crumbled. Because of my higher income, the judge initially considered alimony. But once her debt to me was factored in, the tables turned. Instead of receiving anything from me, she was ordered to pay back the entire amount. She had to make an initial lump sum payment of $10,000, draining a huge chunk of her remaining savings. After that, her alimony wasn't for her benefit. It was a structured repayment plan to pay back every last cent of what she had taken from me. By the time she's done paying me back, I'll be more than ready to finally open my pizzeria. I won't pretend that getting justice undid all the pain she caused me. The betrayal cut deep, and it will take time before I can trust again. But at the very least, I can walk away knowing that she didn't get away with it. She played a long game of lies and deceit, but in the end, the only thing she won was a front row seat to her own downfall. She may be a good liar, but not good enough.